Welcome, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you all for coming to this. This is part of our 50% Solution series, which we haven't had for some time. But I'm very happy to say that we're kicking off this year with our first one being hosted by IBEW, our local 212, and Matt Kolbinski will be presenting about solar. And he is with Pro Lighting and Solar. So we're going to learn a little bit about just general solar installations, a little bit about everything that goes into it, and that is both for residential and for commercial. So I hope that you'll get your questions ready. So this is a free webinar that is hosted by the Cincinnati 2030 District in conjunction with IBEW and Pro Lighting and Solar. I want to tell you a couple things about events coming up though. So we have our Green Umbrella Green Drinks coming up next Thursday. That's March 9th at Element Eatery. And so you can go to our website if you need more information. We also have a few other events coming up. So April 21st, Solar Town Hall, and that will be hosted also by IBEW. So you can look forward to kind of a great follow-up to this session today, and we'll get a little bit more into the details, and they'll have a tour of their net zero training facility. So it'll be a really nice event with happy hour at the end, free for everybody. On Wednesday, the 26th of April, we have our 2030 District member and partner happy hour. So if you're a member or partner of the 2030 District, feel free to come to Union Hall 4 to 6, and we'll have a building tour and happy hour for that. Big things coming up Friday, May 12th, we have the Regional Sustainability Summit. And then you can look forward to the Cincinnati 2030 District Summer Summit. That will be strictly, kind of focused on the built environment, whereas the Regional Sustainability Summit is sustainability as a whole, and that's hosted by Green Umbrella. So I'd like to say thank you to our 2030 District sponsors. Of course, it's wonderful to have IBEW, our local 212, as our marquee sponsor. Our visionary sponsor is Duke Energy, and our silver sponsors are Metro, P&G, and the University of Cincinnati Office of Research. So I am going to let Matt take it away. Matt Kolbinski.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Really appreciate that. Let me pull this up real quick. We'll get started. Can everybody see this?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Chad Day with IBEW Local 212 for your longstanding commitment to sustainability. So I'm Matt Kolbinski. I'm the president of Pro Lighting and Solar, a lifetime Cincinnati resident, born and raised here. I've been in the electrical industry since 1986. I'm a member of Local 212, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I've been a member for 34 years, and I've been fortunate in my training throughout the years of working as a union electrician. I've been in the solar business since 2009. My company, Pro Lighting and Solar, we are a full-scale energy consultant. We do design and specifications for solar projects, energy storage, EV charging, and lighting retrofits. We work with local diverse contractors to implement the projects, and we'd be more than happy to, after this event, to answer any questions that anybody has. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let's talk a little bit about some solar basics. So South facing is the best direction, then west, and then east. So a lot of people say, well, how does solar work? So the sun, as you can see, line 1, the sun shines on the solar panels and it generates direct current of your house. Your place of business is ran on alternating current. So you have to have a way to transform the sun's energy from direct current to alternating current. And how do you do that? In a residential setting, you do that with what's called a micro inverter, which is essentially a transformer that transforms the direct current to alternating current at the source, meaning on the back of the solar panel. On larger scale systems, you'll have an inverter, which is, again, it's just like a transformer. It transforms the direct current to alternating current. I have some pictures and a few that we can kind of go through the parts and pieces. But it goes to an inverter, and then it basically backfeeds the power that you're renting from Duke Energy, and it allows you to power up your home or place of business. Any unused electricity will flow back to the grid. Since our Ohio is a net meter grid tied state, so any excess power would go back to the grid. You would basically have it in your solar bank. And come nighttime, say you put 10 kilowatt hours of your clean energy back onto the grid at nighttime, the first 10 kilowatt hours you pull off are yours, and then you start renting energy from the utility company as you normally would. Any questions up to this point? All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep going then. So let's talk a little bit about the solar market. So the US is poised to hit about 336 gigawatts of solar by 2027. So just to give you a comparison, the last 50 years through 2022, the US has installed 129 gigawatts of power. So what does that mean? That means that basically between now and 2027, we're going to add more capacity than we've already installed for the last 50 years. We're going to add around 207 gigawatts of projected installed solar. So this past year, we did see a lot of bottlenecks in the supply chain. There were some issues with tariffs and some other questions that really left the industry in limbo. And unfortunately, the solar industry has been from time to time in limbo. Based on politics and supply chain and some other issues. The purpose of this meeting is to let people know that those issues, a lot of those issues have been ironed out or are in the process of being ironed out. And we're in a space where the next 10 years, we have a lot of opportunities for growth here in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So the last quarter, there was about 1.36 gigawatts of residential solar installed, 336 megawatts commercial, and 2.7 gigawatts utility. The residential market grew around 37% through second quarter of 2022. And because of some of the supply chain issues, the commercial market and utility market have suffered a bit, whereas the residential market just keeps chugging along and has been, there's just a lot of growth. There are a lot of good contractors in this area that are in the market. So it's really simple to design the system and to get a local contractor to do the installation here in this market. I'm going to go ahead and keep going, and I'll just ask for questions at the end if it's okay. So let's kind of talk about this now. So these are the guidelines that have been published. And these guidelines are just the framework of the tax code. The tax code changed with the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act in August of 2022. There's approximately $369 billion. It's earmarked for renewable energy. So the outlines that I'm showing you here, the actual tax regulations are still being written. Those regulations won't be written and published for maybe a month, 2, maybe even 3 months. So it's kind of stay tuned. But the good thing is the tax code, once it's published, once it's written and published, will be good for 10 years. So the market itself has never had this type of stability of where we sit today and where we're going to be looking at over the course of the next 10 years. So it's quite a luxury as somebody that's been in the solar market here in Cincinnati since 2009. It's really a great time because of the amount of stability that we're looking at here. So the base credit for this year, all the way up to 2033 is 30%. And you can see at the top there that there are additional tax credits that you could potentially get for domestic content, meaning made in America parts, solar panels, racking, inverters. The more components that you can get that are made in America, the better chance you have to get the additional 10% tax credit. There's an energy community bonus as well, which is for redevelopment of brownfields and things like that. So if you have an area that the soil is contaminated or is an old landfill or whatever, there are enhanced tax credits to basically develop that project with a solar array. So the base rate is essentially 6% for large projects. Those are projects over a megawatt, and the base is 6%. You can get up to the 30% if you employ a contractor that pays prevailing wage, which is the average wage in this area, the union wage in this area plus benefits. And then also there's a training component to this. So if you have apprentices that are in a federally registered apprenticeship program, like our program at Local 212 IBEW, if you have a contractor that employs people that are registered apprentices, you can essentially get 30% tax credit. So I look at that as a very positive thing because it used to be a race to the bottom and now it's kind of a race to the top. It's if you invest in your people, then you're going to get extra tax credits, which I think is a brilliant way to do this, because this is the model of sustainability is not only about the technology and the resources and the assets, but it's also about the human part of it, as far as utilizing local contractors and utilizing local contractors that actually invest in their workforce. So again, these are very unique times where there are more incentives for companies that invest in their people. So there's also going to be a production tax credit that's going to kick in a few years as well. But again, this information isn't exactly nailed down quite yet, but it will be realistically within the next month or two, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So up until the Inflation Reduction Act, there was never a way for a nonprofit entity, whether it's a union hall, a training center, YMCA, library, post office, there was never a way for a municipality or a nonprofit entity to harvest the tax credits. That all changed. So with the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a direct pay option for nonprofits, which is huge. And it's really going to be something that's going to help a lot of local nonprofits to be able to control their own energy destiny by investing in solar. So again, the way that this is going to be implemented, there are guidelines, but the actual code isn't implemented yet. This is something that within the next few months, we'll be seeing that happen. But from the guidelines that we have now, 2023 is going to be the best year if you're a nonprofit to do this, because you're going to get the full amount of the tax credit in the form of a check. So you can see on the last bullet point there that the projects, as it goes further out, 2024, 2025, the percentages decrease. So anything after 2025, you're not going to potentially have the ability to harvest this treasury check in lieu of the tax credit for a nonprofit. So basically, what does that mean? That means if you're a nonprofit and you want to utilize the direct pay option, you basically have this year to do it, to get the full amount. Next year, you can get 90%, the year after 85% of the amount of the direct pay option. So one of the other things with this is there are USDA REAP grants that are available. The REAP grants are, they were 25%. The USDA got a large infusion of capital with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. So now for the USDA and the direct pay options available for nonprofits, it's actually a treasury check for 40% of the project cost. So if you're a for-profit business and you're in, say, Harrison, Ohio, or someplace like that, that's in the USDA REAP map area, you could potentially get a 40% check for putting solar on your property. Plus what's left over, that 60% that's left, you could get a 30% tax credit on that amount. Plus there's also maker's bonus depreciation. So there's the opportunity to stack these tax credits the way that it is now. It's never happened before. So it's really an exciting time, and it's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of local businesses, homeowners, and nonprofit entities to take advantage of these generous offerings while they last. So I'm going to go ahead and keep rolling through here. And I just want to show a couple of simple projects. This is what we call a microgrid. This is a residential project. This is up in Clifton, up by Christ Hospital. It's 11.8 kW solar array. We use the Helene American-made panels. And then we also, on the right-hand side, we put in a 10 kW Enphase Encharge 10 energy storage unit. So in the event of a power outage, this homeowner has the ability to continue to generate power, charging up their batteries. And you can see on the far right, there's a small panel there. That's a critical load panel. So as long as the sun's out and shining, or as long as it's daylight, those batteries are going to continually get charged by that homeowner is using their backup power. So this is something that you're going to be seeing a lot more as far as microgrids. You're going to see this with firehouses, police stations, potentially schools. So in the event of a massive power failure, we have safe places where there's electricity. So again, this is a standard residential shingle project. It's really simple installation. This project's up in Oxford. This is a professor at Miami of Ohio. They have a metal seam roof. You can see they've got quite a bit of shading. So they didn't want to take any of the trees down. They didn't want to trim any of the trees. So we did have to add extra solar panels, but this particular homeowner, that's what they wanted. You can see they have a Prius in their driveway there. These people practice what they preach as far as sustainability. So again, this is a metal seam application. It's a very simple installation. The next one is High Grain Brewery. High Grain Brewery is in Silverton. We were fortunate enough to be able to put the solar on for them, their first phase of solar. So this is a ballasted system. It's really essentially a weighted system. So you put the supports down, you weigh them down, and then you put the solar panels in. And we have Unirack is a racking, and then Solar Edge is the string inverters. And the string inverter, you can see on the picture on the right. That's the string inverter. That's essentially the transformer that transforms the direct current to alternating current so that way when they go to make their beer at High Grain Brewery, they're making solar powered beer. So we're really proud of the fact that this is the first brewery that we're aware of in the Cincinnati area that's gone this far as their commitment to sustainability. And we're very fortunate that we were able to be part of this as well, for sure. One other caveat or one other side note, the Electrical Workers Union, they were kind enough to grant, I think it was $3,000 to High Grain in an incentive to help them be able to move forward with this project. So that's something else that, we're really appreciative of the level of commitment from the local Electrical Workers Union, Local 212. So this is a ground mount system. This is a commercial system. This is over on the west side of town, basically the Harrison area. This project qualified for the USDA grant when we did this a couple of years ago. They got a grant check for 25%. Then they had the 30%, oh, I'm sorry, 26% tax credit. And then the maker's bonus depreciation. Today, this project will qualify for 40% USDA REAP grant, 30% investment tax credit, and then the accelerated depreciation. So that you can see where a project like this particular facility, it's now net zero. This is a construction company, Rack Construction. Their whole campus is net zero now. They have they had a single phase service and a 3-phase service. The first solar array in the front powers up the single phase service. The 2 arrays in the back power up the 3-phase service. So this again was a really good challenging project, and we were able to come in and help this customer to basically go net zero. We did a lighting retrofit first, put in occupancy sensors, and then once we scaled down their consumption, then we were able to design a smaller solar array to get them net zero. So let's do a little quick recap here, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So there's a 30% federal investment tax credit, a 30% tax credit for residential, commercial, and utility scale solar. It's also applicable for energy storage, and it's also applicable for EV charging stations. They also, recently, there was $100 million of funding that was released through what's called NEVI, which is the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. And the state of Ohio was allocated $100 million to basically implement EV charging infrastructure in the state of Ohio. That money is going to be doled out basically roughly 20 million a year. So it's $100 million is a total investment. And there is a certification that goes with this. So the concept is we're going to allocate the funding, but we also want to make sure that the people that are designing the projects and doing the installations are certified and essentially know what the heck they're doing. So there's a certification called Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, or EVITP, which our local state-of-the-art net zero training center provides that training to local electricians. But basically, to be able to have access to those funds, you'll have to work with a contractor, like a local union contractor that employs electricians that have that certification. I'm EVITP certified. It's a really good program, and it's something that it's really important that people that are out there designing electric vehicle charging infrastructure projects from a design standpoint and an installation standpoint, that they're trained and certified. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Tom, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we open it up into questions?
Yeah, we had a question about the slides. I've actually already posted them to Pro Lighting and Solar Cincinnati 2030 District Partner page. I will include a link to that in the chat here momentarily. And then just to get us kicked off with the questions, I wanted to direct one to Chad Day to talk about a little bit about sort of the local element towards supporting union electricians and the role of IBEW 212 and some of the apprenticeship programs that the union runs and the longevity that you've all had in our community, and sort of why this is a big thrust of your support.
Well, hey, thanks, Tom. Yeah, the IBEW has been around here for over 120 years. We train electricians to do the work that you see all over the city. We take great pride in that. We've also recently sponsored the 2030 district and some of the events that go along with the Green Umbrella. It's something that our members like. Well, we're into this as well. It's something that we do on a daily basis. We feel strongly about it. Not only that they're sustainable energy sector projects, but they also contain the element of having a sustainable workforce as well. But it's fantastic to work with a contractor and you know that they're taking care of their people. They're part of the community. They're getting trained. They're not going to be a burden on our community and not being able to go to the doctor or increasing our medical bills and things like that. So that's another part that I'd like to point out when you're looking for a sustainable contractor that they take care of the people that are working for them as well. As a union, that's what we do and that's what we believe in. Really, we also partner with, you might see us at a lot of different job fairs and some of the high schools. We do some stuff with Elder, with Western Hills, Roger Bacon and Taylor High School as well. A lot of schools throughout the district where you can take some of your classes while you're a senior or junior in high school, earn dual credits for that. You can also earn college credits for it. And to really jumpstart your career if that's something that you're looking at doing. So if you guys happen to know any young people that are looking for something to do in the future, point them our way, we can always use them.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. Hey, Tom, if I could, I'd like to chime in really quick. So as Chad mentioned, the IBEW, the Electrical Workers Union's been in Cincinnati for over 120 years. Myself and the other 65 union contractors in this area, we fund our apprenticeship privately. We contribute over $1 million a year through our companies to invest in the training of electricians here in the Cincinnati market. So that's something else that we're really, really proud of, is the level of commitment from a training perspective as well. So Tom, is it okay if we go ahead and get to some of the questions then?
Yeah, by all means. I see Kishore has his hand raised or their hand raised, and if they'd like to unmute themselves and direct your question.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I had actually posted my question in the chat, but I was just wondering what the initial outlay for a residential project would be. I know it's it depends on the situation, but like the example that you gave in Clifton, you know, for 11.8 kilowatt with an Enphase storage unit, what would be the expense for that? And I'm talking about before all the credits and all that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really going to depend on the degree of difficulty for the roof. Like if you saw that roof was very difficult as far as the pitch, we had to get a big lift to basically work people on the roof, people on the lift. So that's going to skew things just a little bit. That particular project, you're probably looking at around $40,000 investment for the solar. And then you're probably looking at around $19,000 for the energy storage. Normally, you know, you're going to be around anywhere from $3 to $4 per watt. So what does that mean? If it's a 10 kW system, you're talking $30,000 to $40,000, and this is all before any of the incentives, any of the tax credits, and is just a point to mention. The electrical workers, they're in the process of putting together an incentive program. They have been incentivizing some of the projects, but that's something that will hopefully be implemented within the next few weeks or the next few months. And it'll be, you know, they up to this point, they've been giving between $250 to $500, maybe $1,000 per house. So every little bit helps. And so that's something else that's out there. So Kishore, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I have a link on my website. If you're interested, you can just put the information on there as far as if you're interested in the design, send me a copy of your utility bill, and then I can put together a preliminary design and you can see if it works for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and get into the chat then for questions, Tom?
I have a question.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
by all means.
This is David.
Hi, David.
How are you? Trying to understand, is there a project that is considered too small for a solar array installation?
No. I just designed and quoted a project in Silverton that is 8 solar panels. There isn't a project that's too small.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time, David.
Hi, this is
Madam-
Fraser Cunningham.
Oh,
I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Fraser.
Yeah, so my wife and I intend to buy an EV. It's unfortunately for us not available yet, but when we get that EV, we would like to have a two-way charging system integrated. And I'm just wondering, because we don't want to wait on getting panels installed. So is the current technology kind of designed to integrate something like that later? In other words,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it is. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's okay, can I go ahead and answer that then? Or are you finished?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So Fraser, thank you. And thanks for your time. So normally when we're doing a design and a homeowner is going to be installing an EV charging station, there's extra capacity we're going to have to add if we're trying to net zero your house. So I'll give you a really quick, for instance, if you're going to be putting an EV charging station in your house, obviously that's going to be, you'll be able to get a tax credit for the EV charging station. You'll be able to get a tax credit if your electric panel needs to be upgraded. There's a tax credit for that. As far as the amount of extra solar you'll need to put on, it's about 3.2 kW is the extra solar that would need to be added. So that way, when you plug your car in, your solar panels are charging your car. So what does that mean? That means essentially if we're installing a 400-watt solar panel, we need to add 8 more panels to accommodate that. The way that I would design your house is the exact same thing I have on my house. We would have your solar array, we'd have a combiner box, and then if you wanted to add extra panels, all the main infrastructures are already there. So it'd be as simple as adding the 8 panels of wiring and tying it in. If you want to add energy storage in the future, we can also, with the system that I would design, it would be very seamless and stackable to add energy storage to that as well.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, when you say energy storage, my plan is to actually use the EV as my energy storage. In other words, my wife and I don't use a vehicle very much, but we need it occasionally. So we're going to get this EV and we want to pull the electricity out of the EV to use for domestic purposes when the sun isn't shining. Is that essentially what your answer can support?
Yes, so you would need to change your electric panel to a smart panel. If we change your electric panel to a smart panel, yes, you can do that.
Excellent. And there's a credit for that too. I didn't know that. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
It's quite nice, isn't it? It's a great, I mean, there's no, I've been in the business as far as solar since 2009. I've never seen anything like what we're looking at right now. And the great thing is, this is 10 years of stability. The market's never seen any stability with, you know, as far as the product, as far as the tax credits. We've never seen anything like what we're staring at right now. So it's a really exciting time.
Indeed, yeah. Well, thanks very much for your excellent answer. Good news.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Fraser. Can we go ahead and get into the chat there?
For sure. We have a question. So some of the folks asked their questions in the chat verbally, but Tiffany Budd asked whether you could touch on how efficient solar has become sort of over the decades and how much, and if you have any insights into how much more efficient it is projected to become within the next so many years.
So that's a great question. Tiffany, thanks for attending and thanks for your question. So most of the solar panels are going to be anywhere from 22 to 29% as far as the efficiency rating. So the efficiency has gotten better over the years. I think that we're kind of in a plateau right now. There is an enormous amount of revenue that's going to be implemented through the Inflation Reduction Act as far as research and development to help solar panels be more efficient. But realistically, that's probably more like 5 to 10 years down the road. versus the next couple years. The panels are quite efficient. They have a 25-year production warranty. The life cycle of most of the panels is 30 to 40 years. So when you look at the efficiencies and you look at the warranties, now my view on this is the market is mature, and it's we're able to source local product, American-made product to be able to do this. So does that answer your question, Tiffany?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the next question was Jacob Stott. How would knob and tube wiring affect a residential solar project? So it really wouldn't have an impact on it. Your main service is really what we would be tying into. Anytime you have knob and tube, if you have access to it, you may want to consider changing it out. But it's the old Murphy's Law, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. As long as you have a newer electric service, preferably 200 amps, you're going to be in a good space. One of the other things that, does that answer your question, Jacob?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you have anything else that you'd like to ask?
Not off the top of my head right now.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for attending. Really appreciate it. So one of the other things I wanted to mention from a residential perspective is when you add solar to your house, you're also increasing the resale value of your house. It'd be like putting in granite countertops or finishing your basement, or, you know, doing a bathroom remodel. You're adding to the equity of your house. So there was a study done by Berkeley Lab that basically states that for an existing home that puts solar on, you're increasing the resale value by about $2.90 per watt. So what does that mean? If we talk about back to that 10 kilowatt system, 10 kilowatts times $2.90, you're talking about adding $29,000 to the increased resale value of your home. So that's another thing that, you know, if you're in a situation where you're possibly selling your house in the next 5 to 10 years and you put solar on, your house is going, you're increasing the resale value of your house. So let's go ahead and go to the next question.
I think maybe from Larry. Larry, if you, I'm happy to read it, but if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I had to navigate back to my microphone. I just wanted to know about vendors. How do I find a reliable vendor? And what was my other question?
Free quotes.
Yes. Do they provide free estimates? And then actually I had a third question. I'll throw it in now. It was about solar tax credits and if those are limited by the homeowner's income. So there's those three questions.
Those are all great questions, Larry. And again, thank you for attending and thank you for your time. So that's one of the things that I do. So I'm vendor neutral. I work with several local installers. These installers are all trusted installers. They're trusted professionals. And so, you know, when it comes to, if you're interested in getting a quote, you know, I have several different installers that I work with. I'd be more than happy to provide you with a quote to install solar on your house. And these are all local contractors that employ local electricians. So I'll be able to assist you with that if you want. And then the other question is, are all the solar tax credits you're referring to limited by the homeowner's income? So yes, it's limited on your taxable income. The good thing about the way the tax code is being implemented is if you don't have enough taxable income to harvest a tax credit in 1 year, you can keep rolling it over. And I believe you can roll it over up to 5 years. Does that answer your question, Larry?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Sorry, I keep navigating to chat and
Okay.
having to navigate back to turn my microphone on. Sorry. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Thanks again. The next one is Ren Austin. how does the net billing work? You mentioned 10 kW. Is that a limit of how much you can put in your solar bank? And is it the same for residential and commercial? So the way that it works is if you're looking at from a residential perspective, you're going to have remote monitoring done through the microinverters. So you'll be able to track everything. You'll be able to see in real time what the system's generating, what you're using. And then you can also, it's an adder, but you can add in essentially like a production meter. So you can keep track of everything down to the kilowatt hour as far as what you're generating and what you're using. And it is essentially the same for residential and commercial. The metering equipment is a bit different, obviously, for residential versus commercial, but the concept is the same. Does that answer your question, Ren?
So I guess I was curious, you mentioned 10 kilowatt hours that you could bank that. Is there, so the utility is not buying from you, you're reducing, you're just not getting billed for a certain amount of net usage that you take from them. Is that limited to 10 kilowatt hours? Or,
no, it's not. No, it's not. And I'm sorry if I implied that. It basically, when I do a design on a system, I don't want to over design the system, meaning I don't want you to be in a situation where at the end of the year, where Duke Energy is going to pay you for the excess power. And the reason why is they're going to pay you at the wholesale rate, even though you're buying it at the retail rate. So when I'm doing a design, the sweet spot is 100%. If you take in consideration the solar panels degrade roughly 0.5% per year, and it's a 25-year linear warranty. I'll normally design a project up to 112.5%. So that way, over the course of time, as the panels degrade a bit, you're still, as far as the 25-year warranty, you're still at net zero right at year 25. So there isn't really per se a limit. The way that it works is you're essentially generating your own energy. Any additional energy you need, you'd rent your dirty energy from Duke or whoever the utility is, the same way you normally do now. The good thing about solar is you're producing your own clean energy. You're essentially have your own clean energy power plant on your house or your place of business. So Ren, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a great question. All right. Any other questions?
I had another one. This is Ren again. On roof stability, do you find many roofs that aren't, strong enough to support the solar panels?
Another great question. So part of our package when we do a design on a project, whether it's residential or commercial, is to take care of the engineering, the electrical engineering, and then also the structural engineering. So I would say I've done hundreds of projects in this area, and I've ran into one project, which was an old school building where the roof couldn't handle the weight. And so we provided a proposal to beef up the roof so they could add solar. And so that was implemented as part of the investment. Was we had to make the roof structurally sound, and then we added solar on top of that. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So
Hi.
are you a clearinghouse for a number of contractors, or you are the sole contractor?
So I don't self-perform any of the work. I work with local contractors that physically would do the work. They would do the permitting, the inspections, they would provide a warranty on the labor and things like that. So I have a team of professional electrical contractors, not only here, I'm doing work across the country, but this is my home base. So, I have good contractors in this area that work with me. Yes.
And among those contractors where you would ask for a free quote, let's say, how do you rate, how do you know which type of solar panel are better? So apart that if they're made in the United States, they have that rebate.
So
Who a private can have an idea what type of solar panel to put on.
So that's a great question. We're only going to be installing tier 1 panels. Tier 1 panels have a minimum of a 25-year warranty. The contractors that I work with across the country are all part of our national buying network. We have several suppliers and manufacturers that the contractors I work with buy through. So we get really good pricing. So normally right now, not right now, the American made panels that we've been installing, they're made in Minnesota. It's called Helene Solar, and they've won several awards for their production. And so, you know, what I'm looking for in a material is excellent quality material, something that's going to last a long time because this is a good investment. But I'm also looking at, from a contractor standpoint, I want a contractor that's experienced, trusted, somebody that from a service perspective, you know, if we need something done, you know, they're going to take care of it and they're local and they invest in their people. So there are a couple of different layers of, you know, how I'm picking a contractor. And I also know, because, you know, I work with these contractors all the time, I know which ones are the busiest and things like that. So depending on how fast we can need to turn around your bid, it's going to determine which contractor I'm going to bring in to do that specific project. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, because I was in this search 2 years ago with Solar City here in the Cincinnati city area, and it was a disaster. So I will, in fact, I'm very attracted to the system, which is more locally based. And
Yes.
again, you know, they were prospecting different types of panels.
Yeah.
And for a private like me, who, you know, I need to know, you know, that I can count on some local repair in case, or, you know, support. And
Absolutely.
that in fact there is a, you know, a warranty in labor and the product behind it, rather than the occasional setup and then we fly away.
And
And
unfortunately,
and the other thing that I would like to know, so what do you need apart from the electric bill? You would go Google the Google the place, the house.
yeah, so I have a solar design software that I use. So if you go to my website and you go to request a quote or Solar Now, you can put your information in there, send me a copy of your utility bill, and then I can take that data and do a preliminary design. And then once the preliminary design is done, then I would schedule a site visit with one of my installers. We would physically come and look at the site, look at the degree of difficulty, the pitch of the roof, the age of the roof, the electric service, your trusses, the roof, the whole 9 yards. We would do a site visit, and then we would give you a firm quote to implement solar for your house. And then I would assist you. I'm your single point of contact from start to finish, and I would assist you with the tax paperwork and everything else. And I'm local. And that's one of the benefits about the system that we're working with, and the system that we're building is we're different than a lot of these other contractors, because like you said, they come in, they do work, and then they leave. And then you're like, well, we've got problems. And they're like, well, good luck. And so that's one of the differences with, you know, the business model that we have is we're using local people that are born and raised here, people that it means something to them to be able to implement solar and also to service your projects as well. It's important to have local people, like you said, to provide the warranty and everything else. Thank you.
Kishore here. I have a follow-up question on something that you just mentioned. So assuming that you're getting solar panels on entire side of the roof, if the roof is in need of replacement or close to its end of life,
Yep.
would you recommend getting the roof replaced completely, or can you get panels on top of that part? I'm just looking at reducing cost, especially when it's not required. So I'm just wondering if you
Yeah,
can put solar panels on one side of the roof, which is going to be completely covered by the solar panels without it being replaced.
Yeah, so you can just re-roof the part where the solar is going to get put on, for sure. I have several different local roofing contractors that I work with. And so they are part of my team and part of my network. So if you're in a situation where you've got some age on your roof, I'd be more than happy to assist you as far as getting a local trusted contractor to be able to provide you a quote to replace the roof. Does that answer your question, Kishore?
Yes. Actually, it was the opposite, but I get where you're going. I was
What
just
do you mean?
wondering if we can not replace the roof underneath the panels was my question.
So you're saying not replace the roof where the solar panels are going to go?
Exactly.
You could do that, yes, but my experience, if you've got 10 or more years left on your roof, you're going to be in a good spot. If you're in a space where you only have a few years left on your warranty of your roof, again, every case is different, and we would assist you with helping you make those decisions. But if your roof's in really bad shape, I would not be comfortable putting solar on it unless it was, refreshed and brought up to where it's going to last a while. The last thing I want to do is, put it on and, have to take it off in a year or 2 years. Not that it's that big of a deal. It's like the solar array I have on my house. When I go to put a new roof on, it would take me and an apprentice 2 or 3 hours to take it off and 4 or 5 hours to put it back on. So it's not earth shattering, to take the material off, have the new roof put on it, and put the material back on.
Wow. Okay. I did not know that was that flexible. That's good to know.
Yeah. Mhm.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. What do we have next for questions, Tom?
Oh, just got one. Vasavi, would you like to ask that out loud, or I'm happy to read it if you can.
Sorry, I wasn't fast enough to unmute. Just could you touch on the usage portion of it? I understood if we exceed the production of the electricity, that we get to use the Duke Energy, and we get billed that way. But what happens if we produce, or if we have excess than what we normally consume?
Then Duke would pay you back at roughly 5 cents a kilowatt hour for your excess energy. So they're gonna charge you 9, 10, 11 cents, maybe 12 cents a kilowatt hour. If you're buying it from them, that's what they're going to charge you. When they buy it back from you, they're going to buy it back at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And again, that's why when I'm sizing a system, I'm mindful of that, because I want to put you in a spot where you're maximizing your investment.
Okay. I do have another question. I don't want to use my roof to install the panels. Can I install them on my outhouse?
Yes.
That has direct sunlight? How does that work?
So the way it would work is we could put solar on an outbuilding, and then we would just need to get a conduit, an electrical conduit from the source where the solar is into where your main electric panel is. But that's certainly something that we've done in the past. Sure. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I thought there was another one on here, wasn't there?
Yeah, I had another question, Matt.
Go ahead, Tiffany. Thank you.
Is there any, so I have a roof deck, and I was wondering if there are any type of decking panels that exist or may come into existence soon that are solar.
Yeah, so they make like solar awnings. So we would just essentially install the structure and put the solar panels on it, and it provides shade.
So that would not be good for my deck, but that's why I was wondering if there are actual like deck board type materials. Like you can walk on them and everything.
As far as the solar panels,
Yeah.
no, the solar panels are rated for 120-mile-an-hour wind and golf ball sized hail. So they're quite durable, but to walk on them, I would not recommend that.
Okay, so there's no type of product that exists right now for that.
Not that I'm aware of. There are some things with thin film that could potentially be coming down the pipeline, but we've been hearing about solar shingles and all this stuff for 10 years, and it's not cost effective, and they're just not durable enough yet.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I think there was another question in here as well. Is that
Yeah,
from-
it looks like Jacob had a question about how to get the quote that we listed on the event page. I provided a link to your request the quote page in response. To that.
Perfect.
Jacob, did you have any other, is there any other questions you had about that? Assuming he's still here, of course. Great. Well, yeah, so that's, I don't see any more questions, so I'll toss it back over to Matt and Elizabeth to wrap us up.
Perfect. So I just want to thank everybody again for your time. Tom, you recorded this, so if anybody wants a recording of it, that information's accessible. And again, thank you for your time, and really, really appreciate it. Tom, Elizabeth, thank you. Chad Day from Local 212, I want to thank you as well for your outstanding commitment to our community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom and Elizabeth.
Well, just want to say thank you to all of you, and your questions were very good. I think this was a really great format for this session, and there's a lot more opportunities for continuing to learn about solar and ask more questions as we have them, because I think a lot of people are kind of going through this journey together. And we couldn't do this work without the generous support of IBEW. So we are grateful for your continued support of our organization. And I really hope that everybody will be able to make it next Thursday to Green Drinks, and then following up with the Solar Town Hall on the 21st. So feel free to reach out if you have questions, but I think Tom's provided the links for everything in the chat. So thank you all. Thank you, Tom, for manning the chat there too. All right.
Thanks again.
Take
Have a
care,
great day.
everybody. You too.
Thanks.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Guys.